Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgianna.
Today we are going to be talking about tiny guilts that we accumulate without paying attention. And before we do that, we're going to do a body-based self-connection practice to connect with ourselves before we connect with each other and with this podcast.
All right, so once again, find your anchoring point. For me, I want that to be my butt on the seat right now. So feel where your body is touching either another body part or a surface. Notice what happens to your breath as you pay attention to that body connection. And we're going to do a little bit of gentle movement with our shoulders. So we're starting on the right side. I like to pair this with breath, so you could pair it with your breath as well if you'd like. On the inhale, I like to raise my right shoulder up to the ear. And on the exhale, just slowly release the shoulder. It's a very gentle and slow movement. So you could imagine your shoulder is on a track and it gets to glide gently up on the inhale. And then glide gently back down into place on the exhale. And we'll do that one more time. Raising the right shoulder up to the ear and then slowly releasing on the exhale. And then on the left side, same thing. Breathing in, bringing left shoulder up and releasing. And all of these practices are really about going at your own body's pace. So your inhale and exhale might not match mine or Stephanie's, and that's okay. That's the way it's meant to be. So let your own movement follow your breath.
Thanks,
Take a moment, feel how that feels. I usually add on another bit to that, but I think I'll save that for our next episode.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny that the thing you said about breathing at our own pace. I think there's actually a time where I would have felt some kind of inner shame or guilt is a bit strong of a word, but just this twinge of like wrongness or I should be different if my breathing pacing was different than yours. Even though you said something about it, I would still have been trying to like match or something or making it mean something that I could have been better.
Yeah, I think I used to have that too of, oh, I can't hold my breath as long as someone else can, or their exhale is longer than mine. We're so conditioned to compare.
Yeah.
And compare and then add judgment.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to practice noticing, and it gives me information. And I can do whatever I want with that information. It could inspire me if I noticed, hey, Steph can really hold that breath or really extend that exhale. And if that's something important for me, I could use that as inspiration to practice or to be more aware of those things throughout the day. And that's been a real life changer for me, switching from comparison and layering guilt and shame on top of that to noticing and gathering information and using it to inspire if I want to.
Yeah. If you want to. Yeah.
If I want to.
There's so much wrapped up in that, if you want to, because we've been conditioned to think we should want all kinds of different things. We've picked up over the course of our lives that we ought to feel certain ways, and it takes work to know how we actually do feel and what actually inspires us.
Well, that's the thing. I noticed that bit just with breath, that comparison thing, it went away as I practiced just noticing my own breath just in general. And as I practiced using breath to bring me comfort and peace, breath became my thing. It's mine. I get to use it in a way that feels good for my body. It has nothing to do with yours and what your breath is doing. And I think this goes beyond breath. right? This is when you own something and experiences, this is my experience. I want it to feel good for me. I want it to serve something of value for me. Then I'm less concerned about how does it look in comparison to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something we say a lot in our courses, which is this is what's happening right now. We're often asked, should I feel a certain way? How should I feel about X, Y, or Z thing? And the question really is, well, how do you feel? So noticing
Mm-hmm.
what's actually here with us physically in our bodies, in our minds, as opposed to all of the things that we think maybe ought to be and all of that mental confusion where we get wrapped up in the shoulds and the what ifs. Underneath that all, there's this really simple what is actually here. Here is the pace of my breath, so simple. Okay, so this thing that came up for me yesterday, this tiny guilt that I didn't realize that I had had in the back of my mind for like 2 days before I caught up with myself and was like, hey, pause. What's really here? And it's just such a simple, dinky thing. And I bet this one thing comes up for so many people like every day because it's on Facebook.
Well, what's
um,
neat is that something so simple and dinky, like you said, can occupy your brain space for 2 days, right?
mhm.
So, what else is occupying our brain space?
Right?
Yeah.
Totally. And this didn't like take over my brain, although I can imagine a time or a mood in which it might have, or which something similar totally would, and how just unnecessary that is if you give it a bit of attention. So the thing that happened was this woman that I knew in like a past life, she's a mom's friend of an ex, like quite unrelated, but we're Facebook friends. And so when Facebook says, hey, it's so and so's birthday, I used to just wish everybody a happy birthday. I don't actually say happy birthday. I send 3 red hearts, and everybody knows now this is my birthday wish for
Yes,
them.
I see your 3 hearts. I'm like, she's so thoughtful and kind and well connected to people.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I just want to wish them a happy, quick little birthday and have it be consistent. Now people see the 3 red hearts and they're like, oh, it's somebody's birthday. I should go wish them a birthday. Or they're like, hey, it was my birthday. Where are my 3 red hearts? Because I'm not actually on Facebook every day and I don't get the notifications every day. But so, okay, so I used to send them out to everybody. And then that started to feel quite disingenuous because some people I'm like, I don't actually know who you are. Or I can't actually remember who you are, as opposed to like, we've never actually known each other.
Yeah.
Um, so some days I'll send 3 hearts to certain people, but not to others. And I realized this weekend that I feel this tiny bit of guilt about it, even though I consciously have a good reason and I've chosen it. I wasn't connecting to that choice in the moments because I'm just typing. So I hadn't wished this woman a happy birthday. And I felt that tiny bit of guilt without paying attention. And then the next day I went back on and it was like, hey, you missed so and so's birthday. And that tiny thing down there, and I just tucked it away. And then something in me said, stop. Maybe I felt my bum on the chair, my feet on the ground. And I was like, wait, this guilt makes no sense. If this woman came to me and said, hey, why didn't you wish me a happy birthday? I could settle for a second instead of just being like, I did a bad thing and I'm in trouble. It's like, actually, you are the mom of a friend's mom, an ex. I can't even articulate who you are to me, woman I met one time 15 years ago. It doesn't feel like it's my place to actually wish you a happy birthday. So I didn't do it. And all the guilt just left. I remembered
Mhm.
my big why in this tiny instance.
Well, that's the thing is I think when we're on autopilot, we're not connected to our big why. We're not connected to how we feel and what we need and what is really going on for us. And on top of not being connected to your big why, we also have old programming that says you should, you should, you should, you should XYZ. And when you don't, you're meant to feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I wonder how many of us walk through life, walk through our days feeling guilty about something all the time
Mm-hmm.
when it's not actually necessary. Because when you sit with it a little bit and you bring some curiosity and compassion to yourself, in this instance, you notice, when I connect with people for their birthdays, I want to feel a deep connection with someone. I want to be able to relay that they matter to me and I care about them. And I don't want to be just dishing that out to random people who I don't actually feel very connected to. And so I'm going to be more discerning about who gets these 3 hearts. And that feels good for me. And then all of a sudden, it's not a guilty feeling anymore. It's more of a self honoring.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I want to say how, I mean, you and I have done a huge amount of work on our inner worlds and discovering our bodies over the years. And, we used to be like many other people. When someone said, get in your body, we didn't know what they meant. Sitting down on a meditation mat felt like hell, confusing hell. Um, Now
That's
I feel
accurate.
so in touch with all these aspects of myself, and it's such a physical thing. So this tiny guilt thing, partly the reason that I'm able to identify it and notice when it comes up is because it has a very physical presence now, and
Mm-hmm.
it's distinguishable. Like the guilt, the unaddressed guilt kind of gets packaged up and tucked away in what I can only describe as the sensation of like a cylinder up and to the right.
Mm,
When it's dealt with, it's kind of a cylinder down and to the right. When it's just swirling, it's more up here to the left. Like these are very physical sensations for me having these emotions.
that's
It's
so
neat.
neat that you can like map it out like that.
Yeah, it's really, it's a thing. I think this
Mm-hmm.
is a skill we can all build, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, I love that because your radar is just more in tune. You're more in tune with your radar. Your
Mm,
body's giving you so much information. All of our bodies are giving us so much information. And a lot of us have been conditioned out of connection with our bodies. So we're not knowing what the messages are, yet we are feeling the impact of not honoring the messages.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You said you had an example of a little guilty thing from this week.
Yeah. My oldest was on the island for a lacrosse tournament. Not a tournament, actually. It's the provincials, like the biggest thing you could play for at the end of the season. And I didn't realize this at the time when I was planning my schedule and looking at the lacrosse schedule, but the tournament was on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I always joke that for children to play these sports, you need to have money but no job. Like, I don't actually understand how we make this work with, tournaments in the middle of the week. But, anyways, I needed to work on Thursday and Friday, so I wasn't able to go. And I thought, no problem. Saturday morning, I'll get up super early. I will walk on the ferry and get picked up and like join everybody else and get to watch the games on Saturday and Sunday. And I had this body feeling of like something doesn't feel right about this. My head was like, yeah, you can make it work. You should go. It will be fun. This is the last thing of the year, last tournament, last big thing. It's a big deal to make it to the provincials. And they have a very strong team. They have a chance to do really well. And I was like, what is this thing that feels so off in my body? Why am I not completely decided that this is what I'm going to do? So I sat with it a little bit and I realized my body is exhausted. I've been sick for 3 weeks, um, just so depleted. And I knew if I get on and I try to make all that work this weekend, I'm going to socialize. I'm going to watch the game. It's going to be tons of energy everywhere that my body's actually not ready for to go from being pretty low key and recovering to like full on. And I thought I will enjoy myself for the weekend. I will come back on Monday to start my week and I will feel so depleted. I will feel so stretched thin and I won't actually be able to be the kind of mother I want to be. I'll probably be snappy and short and tired and not want to connect in the ways that I enjoy connecting when I'm, resourced. So I thought I need to make a real adult decision here and say no and not go. And it went against so much of my old conditioning, because the old conditioning is, if you can make it work, you make it work and you go. And the new programming is really, please listen to your body. So in the end, I made that decision to stay home, and relief. My body just felt relief. Like, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. But then there was this tiny bit. Like, I was actually happy. I was so proud of myself for making this decision, because my old self would never have made a decision like that, because I could have pushed through. And then there was a moment of like guilt. And I was like, what is this? It's like, oh, this is mom guilt. This is, your son is playing at the provincials, the biggest tournament at the end of the season, the one they work hard for all year, and you're not going to go. You could go. You're probably just going to be sitting at home doing nothing in particular. How can you not go? And that icky feeling that you're talking about, that guilt, it didn't feel good in my body. And I knew, if I just push this guilt aside, which was also old programming, just push it aside, focus on something else, or focus on, my body really needs to have rest. And so that's why. But I decided to like be curious about what I was feeling, how I was feeling. And part of me felt sad. I felt sad to miss out. I felt sad to not be able to cheer in the stands. I felt sad that we would not have that memory together to share. I wouldn't be able to talk to, him about it and be like, oh, remember that moment or that pass or that game or whatever. And there was a part of me that felt sad about that. So it was important for me to let myself feel some of that. Mm-hmm. And then I remembered, my body needs rest. My kid is actually probably going to appreciate it more if I'm kind and attuned with him next week than if I'm in the stands, because he knows I love him. He knows I would cheer hard. He's got a whole ton of parents and family and fans there cheering. He would have been okay. And he probably would have rather have me not there and just really available to him this week. Mm-hmm. So I had to remember that. But it's easy to forget those things.
Yeah. And that we can face them, these parts of ourselves. We've got to give voice to these parts of ourselves so that the other parts can also have attention. You say you could put aside the guilty part and it'll still be there. And you won't be able to really sink into the choice that you've made because you're being nagged in the background by this guilty part, but just giving some voice to it. And that doesn't mean that kiddo might not be sad that you weren't there. Then you give voice to that part too, so that he can then recognize, right, I do want mom to actually be healthy and with me next week. It's such an important piece. Right. It's a good lesson. Like, it's a good life lesson for all of us, right? Sometimes there's things that you're going to want to do and it just, you aren't going to feel resourced enough to do it. And for the long game, it's going to be better to say no to that thing, even though it feels hard. And the funny thing was, this team is made up of fantastic parents. And on Saturday night, I think, we found out that we would make it to the gold medal game. And one of the moms texted me and this other mom who didn't go, and said, if you guys want to come, we will like pick you up from the ferry, tomorrow, and you could come watch. And I saw that message and feelings came up of, should I go? Should I not go? Like, someone's really like offering to make life easy for me and just pick me up and have me be there. And so this other mom who didn't go calls me. She's like, what do you think? And I was like, oh, I would love to. And I was thinking, maybe if she really wants to go, then maybe. And it was funny because she said to me, I thought maybe if you really wanted to go, then maybe.
Yeah. And we had a really good laugh about that. And we slowed it down enough to recognize that's an old pattern that we have, and to be more intentional of like, why did we initially choose not to go?
Mm-hmm.
And is that still something that's really important to us?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what will feel best in our bodies? Is that what will feel best for the week to come? And we both came very quickly right back to that conclusion of yes, this is the best choice for us.
Yeah.
And it was neat to just watch how that whole decision making process came, like how we worked through it and how we sort of felt our way through it, how we felt pulled by old conditioning, pulled by, moments of guilt, at least for me. Um, yeah, but in the end, I was like, this is what was right for me for this time.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah, that's so important. Yeah, I think we just spin around with these unexamined thoughts so often. And that's such a standard mode of operation, what you just described. The, oh, well, do you want to? Like, I don't,
Mhm.
maybe if you want to, then I can do it too.
Yeah.
I think that is a great indicator that there's something there that's unexamined, that we're
Hmm.
not taking the time or energy to face in that moment to really feel into our own feelings,
Hmm.
or because we don't know how to, you know?
Yeah. And I think for me, it was there because this is still new for me, this practice of
Mm.
not pushing through,
Mm.
right? Of really listening to my body. And so, like, I made it initially, that decision, but then when I had the opportunity to jump back into an old pattern, it's like
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
there, ready, waiting for me to say, screw this new way of living. Let's just go back to the old way. I know that way.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I slowed down with it and sat with it, I was like, no, like, I really want to go down this new way, this new path of listening to my body.
Yeah, definitely. There can be a lot of waffling as well. And I think a great cop out, which is also often true and a tricky balance, is leaving it up to the universe, or, whatever
Mm.
language you want to use, letting Jesus take the wheel, whatever it is. Um, I think there's a clear
Sorry, that makes me laugh.
good.
Just visualize that.
Yeah. There's a path for us. Like I do believe that there's a way that is the truest thing for us in any given moment. And I think that to some degree, the universe will test us, when we've got a new way that we've decided, or a new idea that we've agreed will be the way.
Hmm.
The universe or whatever will come and test you. Are you sure?
Always,
Maybe don't you
always.
want the
I
other
feel
thing that
that
you said?
test
Right?
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. And when we're not connected to ourselves, that is a prime zone to be swayed in some other direction and just to get super confused. But when
Right.
you take those as an opportunity to double down on feeling into what's true for you in that moment, it just helps to solidify this new empowered way that we can choose for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually reminds me, this weekend I was actually sort of full of body based choice making and shifting out of old habitual autopilot, guilty shoulding myself because I don't know if it was Thursday or Thursday maybe. Shay had messaged me and said, "Can you help me cover a call on this Saturday, a coaching call?" And I could feel it. I'm like, oh, my old programming wants to say, yes, of course I can help you. I can do it. And my new programming was, why don't you give yourself a little time to sit with that and feel that out and see if that feels good and if that actually lines up with how you envision the weekend to be and what you want for the weekend. At that time, I hadn't fully decided what my plan was, whether I was going to the island or not. And I was so proud of myself. This sounds simple, but it's so significant for me because I was really shifting an old pattern. I texted her back and I said something like, I don't know what my plans are yet for the weekend. So I need a little bit of time and I'll get back to you later today. And like
Perfect.
that seems so simple and obvious,
Mm.
But that was not how I was wired. I was wired before, if someone asked me to do something and it's that I could help someone, it's someone I love and care about too, I'll make it work. I don't
Right.
care what I have planned, I'll make it work. And this time I was like, you know what? I really need to see if this fits for me. And I know she will understand. And she will not just understand, she will want me to only say yes if
Mm.
it's from a really resource, genuine, abundant place. And it
Mm.
really feels good for me. So it was a great time for me to practice.
Good. Yeah, that's not an
Yeah.
obvious thing, or rather, it's obvious to one part of the population and it's not at all obvious to another part of the population. And all of these people interact together. So you've got some group of people who are just saying yes, 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 even though they're not actually ready to say yes and they're not resourced and they maybe shouldn't be saying yes. And they might be interacting with people who are only wanting them to say yes from this very resourced place and trusting that they'll say no if they have to. And, these are the ways the world works. So important
Yeah.
to give attention to this stuff for yourself.
Yeah, it really is. So I made it a priority first to come to a conclusion of, do I want to go away to the island this weekend? Will that feel good for me? Is that what how will I feel coming back? Is that what I want for this coming week? And I made it really about me first. And then once I chose what I wanted for me for the weekend, then it became the next question of, okay, I will be here. And my old pattern would have been, well, if I'm here, of course I'm going to do it.
Right.
Right? I could help you out. And I was like, no, wait, like that doesn't have to be an automatic thing. Like, what if I don't feel like it? I've been sick for 3 weeks. I just finished working 2 long days. Do I want to, add another coaching call to my weekend when really the weekend was meant to be for, chilling out and relaxing?
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered, like this is an hour and 15 minutes of my life. I feel so great and energized when I get to connect with these women on these calls. It's yes, right? And in the end, I did the call.
Mm.
And in the past, I probably also would have done the call. But the process to get there, to make that choice, was so
Mm-hmm.
different.
Yeah.
The showing up there was so different because I showed up fully knowing I chose this for myself. It
Yeah.
wasn't like now I'm resentful and
Yeah.
now
Right.
I'm like overstretched and now here I am always saying yes to everybody. It didn't come from that place,
Mm-hmm.
but it would have in the past.
Yeah. That's super important. I want to give a bit of attention to something you said earlier, that you would be at home doing nothing in particular, which is such a way that we talk about caring for ourselves and not working and not like overextending. So you're recovering from coronavirus, like you've been sick, taking a weekend to rest. I guess I want us to move away from calling it doing nothing. And I want to liken it to
Yes.
the idea of sleep, which like we need sleep or we'll die. And when we go
Mhm.
to sleep, we don't refer to it as doing nothing. We say
Mhm.
we're going to sleep.
Mhm.
And when we're taking time for ourselves, especially for good and important reasons that we've chosen, it's
Yeah.
so easy as part of our patterning to just call it doing nothing or being
Yeah.
lazy or whatever words you've
Yeah.
got for it. And it's so important that we take time for ourselves so that we can be recharged. It's putting on your air mask before your kid's air mask on a plane. It's not
Yeah.
selfish for selfish reasons.
That is something I really had to learn and practice, that restoration, rejuvenation, rest is crucial. It's mandatory. We have to have it. It's useful, right? I was conditioned with, you need to always be doing something that's productive. And restoration was not deemed one of those things. And
Mm.
it's funny when I work with people who are still very much in that mindset of, I need to be productive. Like, great, let's just lean into being productive and let's be really productive with resting.
Yeah. Yeah. I want you to
You-
produce some serious restoration, guilt free.
Whatever is your gateway to like a new pathway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've really had to learn how to be, air quotes, useless
Mm.
and see that that's valuable and necessary, and
Hmm.
that my worth does not come just from performance and doing.
Yeah.
I remember saying to you once, so Steph, you mean I need to practice being like a lump on a log? Like, really, just useless.
Yeah. You got to practice hard. You
But I,
do. That's such an important
yeah.
piece. Like, I think we can jump to affirmations and trying to have opposite thoughts of what we actually believe. And that's not going to work because subconsciously we believe something different. So, if your
Mhm.
belief is that you need to be productive, then reframing it in that way is really helpful. It's going to take you a lot of work to sit down and be recuperating and
Yeah.
doing nothing. It will take you active effort to do nothing. It's going to be
Yes.
work.
Which will feel good for my old programming because I'm like,
Yeah.
I know how to do work.
Yeah.
And then what happened for me was eventually I'm like, oh, I like this feeling. My body likes this feeling. I want this feeling more. Right.
Mm,
So I love finding those little ways that maybe fit with our old programming and at the same time help us shift into something new.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we do a closing practice, I'm hoping you'll lead us through something that will help us notice and hold those pieces for ourselves as they come up. But I also want
Hmm.
to talk about our upcoming program, Priming the Body for Peace, and how this practice makes these tiny shifts in your life. It's so exciting because these are activities you can do. You don't need to change everything. You just need to add these simple activities that you can do in 30 seconds to 5 minutes, and it will change the way you think and feel about everything in a really positive way that folds into your life naturally.
Yeah. I love the simplicity of it. And I was not a love the simplicity of things kind of girl before. I was like, it's got to be big and hard because I got to work hard, right? If it's going to do anything good for my life. And I just discovered there's beauty in simplicity, and adding something small is a lot easier than stopping all of our old protective patterns and autopilot patterns. That's what I hear people telling me they're so frustrated about. They're like, I know I need to stop doing this thing, but I just can't. And then
Mm-hmm.
I like shit on myself afterwards and feel even worse. And, I asked them, what if there was a gentler way, a kinder way? And it works. It actually helps you change your patterns. Would you be open to it? I mean, if you would really like to go back to your old ways, you're always welcome to go back. How about trying something different just for a little bit? I've never heard someone say no,
Yeah.
especially
Well,
when I say,
I
you
would
can
say
always go
no,
back.
right? Yeah, that's the piece I was just gonna say because I would be like, I don't know, gentle and tiny feels like a waste of time to me. I prefer like an intense, harsh, let's do the whole thing. That's my old programming.
Mhm.
So for you to be like, great, like we can do that too. That stops me enough to go, okay, well, okay, what's your thing then? And it's this
Yeah.
little tiny thing that feels like nothing that at first internally I probably argued with. At first
Mhm.
internally I was judging everybody around me who was doing these tiny little nothings. Who needs
Mhm.
to be so gentle and soft? My mom still says, like, do you really need that much soothing? It's like, well, apparently I actually do. And it
Mhm.
feels really good. And
Yeah.
these are simple tools anyone can do any moment of the day in any circumstances to settle your system and become present in a way that's going to be helpful for whatever your circumstance is in that moment.
Yeah, like I've used them when I just feel overwhelmed because I'm rushing from thing to thing. There's lots on my plate. I remember walking a mom through it while she was trying to breastfeed her baby, and her preschooler was running around the living room screaming. And I said, are you open to practicing something right now? She's like, okay. guess it can't hurt. And she's like, but what could I possibly do? I've got one kid stuck to my boob, the other one's running around, like, screaming. I said, well, let's just give this a try and see. She's like, okay. And I walked her through a very simple, gentle practice. It probably took 15 seconds to 30 seconds. And then my question is always, what did you notice? How did that feel? Does that feel different or the same as before? She's like, what did we just do? I'm like, yeah, it was simple. She's like,
Yeah.
I feel so grounded. I feel connected to my daughter who's breastfeeding. I see the other one who's running, and I don't feel this need to just scream at everybody and
Amazing.
lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, because it can be this simple,
Yeah.
right? We touch on 6 different elements that we bring into the practices that we use. And I just walked her through some of those. And some of the exercises use 2 of the elements at a time or 1 of the elements at a time, but they're simple. And I remember walking a woman through, this was during conscious relationship training when we were teaching it. And she's having like a full on panic attack outside the room. And again, I asked her, would it be okay if I walked you through a practice right now? And she said yes. And we practiced again, something simple that brings in those elements, those 6 key elements that you and I talk about in priming the body for peace. And I could just see everything changing in her body, in her breath, in her awareness of her space. And I checked in with her, like, what's happening with you? And she's like, oh, I feel better. I can be here now.
Yes, I can be
I'm
here now.
here again.
Yeah.
And so those would be things that I think in the past, before I learned any of this, I would have been freaking out. Like, this person having a panic attack, I got to use every huge tool I know to help them get out of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But the things we practiced were tiny, subtle. She could do anytime, anywhere, and remember them anytime, anywhere with some practice.
Yeah.
And when you have been someone who has experienced a panic attack, those are terrifying.
Yeah.
And to be able to empower someone who not only has panic attack and feels panic and terror during those, experiences, but they also have a fear of them coming back.
Yeah.
Right? They live with a fear of them coming back at any time unannounced. For that person to know, oh, that time when I had that panic episode, I used this tool and I was able to help myself settle and regulate my nervous system.
Mm.
And it didn't take very long. That's relief.
Yeah.
For someone who knows, hey, another one might come up again without me anticipating it. And I have tools now and they have worked.
Oh,
Right?
I wish that I had had these tools. I haven't been in a romantic relationship for, well, I'm in a long one for 7 years, I guess. And I wish I had had these tools at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Before I did this work, my relationships were not the happiest, my
Mm-hmm.
partnerships. And I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be in those heightened moments and have these simple grounding self-regulation tools to get through the moment and to be able to feel what was actually happening in my body. I mean, we've said before, I wouldn't have been in these relationships if I'd known myself the way I know myself
Mm-hmm.
now. But having these tools at any of those stages would have been just life changing.
Yeah. And, I'm glad that we have them now. I'm glad we can share them now. What brings me so much joy is when people learn these tools from us and then they come back and tell us, oh, I taught it to this person today. Or I was like, talking to this neighbor and I shared this, or my sister, or these people at work. And that brings me joy because, my biggest thing is I just want more people in the world to have access to tools that help them feel more competent, capable, and at peace in their own bodies.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Yeah.
The other day I was feeling a bit emotional, was driving somewhere. This often happens. It's some combo thing. I'm maybe listening to sad music or just feeling any kind of way. And I was like, oh, right. Okay. There's that icky feeling. Okay. Tools, tools, tools. And I started running. I was like, hey, rectangle, look for a rectangle. And it wasn't helping because I was just pretending, right? I was like, okay, rote. I'm using these by rote now. And then I went, oh, right. It's not working because I'm just giving lip service to the tools that I know are so helpful right now. So I,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just rectangle, 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 I took a breath with each rectangle, and it
Yeah.
took like 3 seconds to come back,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. And that's the other thing is many of us, it's not that we don't know tools or we don't have access to tools, but many of us have not had practice using tools in an embodied way, meaning using a tool while being connected to your body. All
Yeah.
right. And that's what makes the huge difference. That's why in 3 seconds you can notice a difference. That's what my clients tell me all the time. They're like, how did that just happen? That was like 15 seconds, not even.
Yeah.
And it's because we combined
Yeah.
body connection and environment connection to the environment.
And no shame or judgment, you know?
No.
Like the way that we approach this work is in an actually compassionate way. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
use this tool or
Yeah.
else, or like you're using the tool wrong. It's like, hey, if you
Yeah.
need to come back to swirling in your worries, you can do that
That's
too.
okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. This is a very sweet story. I work with someone and she's delightful. And when we first started working together, I start every session with a body connection practice. We sprinkle them in throughout the session. We end with one. And she was very honest with me in the beginning. She's like, my mind just goes to, am I doing this right? Should I be doing it this way? Should I be doing it that way? How is it supposed to feel? Is it supposed to feel like this? And we had a nice giggle and laugh about it. And we let that be okay, right? We said, you've been conditioned and programmed to see everything through the lens of, am I doing it right? Is this right or wrong? Let me have someone else tell me how it should feel and how I should be doing it. Said, let's just let that be okay. And also practice noticing, what was that like for you? And we just met again last week, and I walked her through a new practice. And she was telling me about it afterwards. She said, oh, when we changed the focus to this other part of the practice, everything I felt in my body was, I'm not ready yet. This feels so good. I want more of this. And we reflected on how amazing that shift was. Because we talked about, remember before when we first started seeing each other, what was present for you was, am I doing this right? And now what's present for you is, this feels really nice for me.
Mm,
I would like to stay here for 3 more breaths.
mm.
I'm not ready yet to transition to something different.
Yeah.
And how awesome is it that you notice that, you know what that feels like now in your body? And that's what dictates how you make your choices now and what you choose to tell me,
Yes.
right? Is, oh, I wasn't actually ready for that
Can you
transition.
see how this folds out into every area of life so brilliantly? Knowing what feels good for you and being to sit in that space more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything
So
changes.
everything changes. So if you are starting at a place where you're like Steph was, where you think it's all dumb and stupid, that's okay. I thought it was dumb and stupid too at some point. If you are, I'm sure it's good because what everyone else tells me is good must be right. And am I doing it right? Let that be okay. Let that be your starting point. And I guarantee you that is going to shift over time. And what you're going to experience is, I know my body better and I'm willing to honor what my body is telling me it needs. And that will change your life.
What a
Yeah.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you for that. So that's priming the body for peace. Registration's open now. It's affordable for everybody, and it's free for school teachers and early childhood educators.
Yes.
I think we've shared a few links. We've just started advertising, so you'll see more about that coming up. And yeah, feel free to get in touch.
Yes, I wanted to add stuff. I haven't talked to you yet, but I am pretty confident you'll say yes to this. I want to also make it free for what do they call them here? EAs, educational assistants.
Oh, okay.
Those are people in classrooms who help, who are put in classrooms to give extra support to the class and to specific kids who have extra needs.
Oh,
And
okay.
I want to make
Great.
sure they get that too.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Great. Okay. Have you a practice for us?
Mm, have I practiced? I just saw you go like this. So I'm going to follow that. Let's go with finding your feet or finding your butt on the seat
Feet butt.
and giving your hands a squeeze. On the inhale, just opening up the arms as wide as you can, lifting the chin. Following your own breath on the exhale, just bring the hands back together. Give them a squeeze. This squeeze point for me always sort of symbolizes a reset. In life, we don't typically build in resets into our day, right? So we reset, and then when you're ready, you inhale, open up again, and look up. Follow your own exhale, bringing the hands back together, resetting. Notice what happens to your breath at that reset point. Are you holding your breath? Does your breath naturally want to release? And then when you're ready, opening up again, lifting the chin, and follow your exhale. I really like this one because most of us, if you're stressed or overwhelmed or experiencing anxiety, usually the body posture is folded in, looking down. So here we're like bringing in the opposite movement. And our body needs time to be in that opposite body position to know that it's safe to be here, that this is also an option, and that healthy living is a balance between being able to go inward and to also open up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gigi.
You're welcome.
Anything else you want to say before we sign off today?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. As always, please like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share it with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.